Hi, I'm Tim. Join me in this video as we take the HobbyZone Cub and Sport Cub S2, unbox it, take a look at it, and have a good discussion on AS3X's safe technology, then take it out for a test flight. Let's get to it. Let's do an unboxing of the HobbyZone Sport Cub S. Again, this was given to me by a neighbor, Dale. It's given to him. We'll open it for the first time here, and we'll go over the box because there's a lot of information on it, but let's take a look inside. So it opens up very nicely here. And this is everything's in here that you need. There's the airplane, a very nice 2.4 gigahertz transmitter, the charger for the NiCad batteries, the LiPo batteries, two LiPo batteries right here. And basically everything's here. So we just take off these holders, and you can keep the box as a carrying case if you want. It is a very nice job. And here is the airplane. It's a very nice little airplane. It is obviously ready to fly, made out of foam. It is 4 channels. You can see under here the separate aileron servos for each aileron, so that's a little bit different than other ones that are 3 channels. Nice landing gear with wheels. Everything's all set to go. Remember, with these types of airplanes, the wing is fixed on. We can't take off the wing and look inside. You just have to go on faith that everything is in there, installed properly. It is for center of gravity purposes and so forth, but just the way these smaller models are. So that is the airplane right here. The batteries and chargers and the transmitter is right here. We'll go into a little bit more detail on the transmitter with the safe functions of it and just how to use this transmitter for the airplane. So let's take a look at the box. There's a lot of information on here. One of the things they push about this Sport Cub S is that you can teach yourself how to fly with this airplane. As part of that, they have what's called Teach Yourself to Fly with Safe Technology. The safe technology is part of an autopilot gyro system. We'll go into more detail on the transmitter, where you can adjust how much control you're allowed to have with a model. So the beginner mode, you can't move the controls too much. Intermediate, it's a little bit more, and then you can turn it off so you have full control with no restrictions by the autopilot. There's also, and that, just to give you a preview, that's this switch right here, beginner, intermediate, off. If you have the safe technology on with this red button and the plane goes out of control, technically you can push that button. The magic of the autopilot will write it and it will recover from whatever dive you're in. I am not a big fan of the safe technology. I know a lot of people use it. I like to fly an airplane to learn how to fly it. The best thing to do, I think, is to get an instructor just to learn the basics of airmanship and how to fly an airplane. But the safe is on there as an option. For this flight, when we take it out to the field, we're going to turn the safe off. We'll just fly it normally. So that's listed right here, the safe technology. They notice that it's easy to fly, panic recovery mode, that's the red button I showed you, the 3 flight options, beginner, intermediate, off. And then first person view, you can do that. That's a whole separate discussion in the owner's manual. You have to buy different things for that. We'll not go into that here. Again, everything in the box, the complete plane, the transmitter, rechargeable battery, the charger, and there's 4 AAA batteries. I've already put them into the transmitter. That comes. Literally, you could buy this, charge the batteries, install the AA batteries of the transmitter, and go fly. I mean, everything is really here. It's pretty good. And finally, just take a look at the back. Again, these are all the components, the plane, the transmitter, in-flight battery charger for the transmitter, safe technology. You push that red button to recover everything in the box and so forth we discussed. 7 to 10 minute flight time, depending how you use the throttle, and 4-channel control, which is pretty good. And the size of the airplane is 24 inches long and 16 inches with a wingspan. Now, one thing that I want to point out for this airplane, this is being filmed in May of 2024. We're in the age of FAA registration, remote ID. Because this plane weighs less than 250 grams, 250 grams is about 8.8 ounces. The plane weighs 6 ounces with the battery. What that means for you flyers here, you do not need to register this airplane with the FAA. There is no need to register it because it's under 8.8 ounces of flight weight. And because you don't have to register the airplane, there is no requirement for remote ID. There's no need for remote ID. The only thing you need is the trust certificate by the FAA. That's their equivalent of a pilot's license for RC model airplanes. It's free. You can do it on a smartphone. It takes 45 minutes. It's actually a pretty good test. You learn a lot. You take it one time in your life. You're good for the entire time for the trust test. That would be the only paperwork requirement for this model. Two items that might sneak by you when you do the unboxing. There's a very small white strip that looks like this. That is the Velcro for attaching the battery to the airplane. It just attaches right here. So you have to look for that. It's white. It tends to blend in with the foam. That is necessary so the battery can be attached to the airplane. The other thing that's not in the instruction manual, but it's here, are some attachment fixtures. I'm pretty sure this is part of the equipment needed that goes in here. If you want to buy separately on the HobbyZone website floats, you can fly this with floats. That's part of the attachment for the floats. Part of the magic of the 2.4 gigahertz radios that we all use today, it allows us to fly without frequency boards and so forth, are these transmitters are binded to the receiver in the airplane. It's a little bit of a tricky process to bind any transmitter to the receiver. In this case, the receiver is coming with the airplane and the instructions say that it's binded in the factory. This was in fact binded. It worked absolutely fine. All the controls are in the correct direction. However, if you want to use your own transmitter, they list a series of them. I'll go through the instruction manual in a moment. Or for whatever reason, this is not binded to the airplane. There's some techniques you do by pushing down this control stick to do the binding. I'm not going to go through that in the video. It's a fairly complicated procedure. You should not have to do it, but just carefully read the instructions if there's a need to bind the transmitter to your receiver airplane. Again, came out of the box fine. I did not have to do it. Now I'd like to go through the instruction manual a little bit. Again, I'll put details on the video. You don't have to look at it here. The manual is pretty thick because it's in multiple languages. It's only a couple of pages that you need for what you're doing. The first thing, and again, I'll show this up on the video of what's included in the box. We've done that. There's some flying tips on where to fly it. As I mentioned, there's no need for registration or remote ID. The main thing I want to emphasize on flying this airplane, fly it with a minimum wind. These small models, the more wind you have, it's just going to be harder to fly it. Try to fly on a no-wind day for your initial test flights. There is a pretty good discussion of the transmitter, just all the power LED lights, the trim functions. There's an alarm if the battery gets too low. Putting in the transmitter batteries, we all know how to do that. This whole thing is a section on how to bind your transmitter to the receiver. Again, we don't have to do that unless you want to use your own transmitter. And then they talk a little bit about the safe modes. And again, I mentioned this beginner mode with self-leveling, intermediate mode, and the experience mode where the safe is off. I will fly with the experience mode, so it's not part of it. And the panic recovery, as I mentioned, is this red button when safe is on to recover the airplane. And we'll talk a little bit later about the AS3X stabilization, which is part of the airplane, which gives a very smooth flight in a little bit windy conditions, but that is different than safe, and I will not talk about that now. It talks about charging the battery. The only thing I want to mention about charging the battery, this is the charger. It's a USB charger, and the main thing is you never want to short this out, so if you keep it label up here, and plug it in, you'll be fine with the charger. The red light is on, it's charging. When the red light is off, the plane is fully charged, or the battery is fully charged. And they say it takes about 45 minutes to charge it, and that was about right for what we have to do. So let's go ahead and install the battery and see how that goes. We turn on the transmitter first, and we have the little red light on the transmitter. Then we're going to take a battery, we're going to plug it in here, and if you just take a look at this plug for the transmitter, this little tab That is the bottom of the battery, or the non-label side, label side, non-label side, to make sure you don't put it in backwards. Now, let's talk a little bit about the AS3X. AS3X is technology in this system. It's pretty magic stuff. It's essentially a solid-state gyro stabilization assembly. What AS3X does is it detects slight bumps or wind when you're flying. It will automatically, transparently, to you as a pilot, provide stabilized flight. It's really a wonderful capability for these smaller models that otherwise would be very twitchy and tricky to fly. It doesn't interfere with your flying like the safe technology or autopilot. It's just transparent to give you a smoother, more solid feel for the model. But what has to happen is we plug in the battery, the model has to be still for 5 seconds to let everything settle down. And to activate the AS3X, you have to let the motor work just for a second. You'll hear a lot of little chatter from the AS3X. That's absolutely normal. Just as the model moves around, will demonstrate that. That is a normal part of the model's engineering and construction. The catch is they don't mention that in the instruction manual, that little chatter there, but that's a normal part even when you have safe off. So the transmitter is on. We're going to take the battery. As I mentioned, we'll have the little edge thing down. We put that on. The Velcro holds it in, and then we want that to be steady for 5 seconds. Now, the controls work fine. You can see the elevator up, down, the rudder. Notice the ailerons. There's a ton of ailerons. I'll talk about that in a second. And, well, actually, the AS3X is working now. Can you hear that little chatter as it moves around? Normally, you have to apply the throttle first to turn that on, but it's on. So that's full throttle, and I think that'll have plenty of flight. So you can see that there's that chatter. That's the AS3X automatically working to keep the model steady as you fly. Now let's put on the safe situation. We'll put it to beginner and watch as the model turns. Do you see how he controls? It's trying to, when it's this way, the aileron's up, it's trying to get it level. That is the autopilot automatically trying to fly the airplane. When we turn this off with the switch all the way up, that doesn't happen anymore. So again, it's just personal preference. Autopilots are wonderful when you know exactly what they're doing, you're understanding it. I think with these model airplanes, especially something as simple as this, you should be able to fly this on your own. But that safe technology is there if you're trying to teach yourself how to fly. It's just don't get frustrated if you're saying what every pilot says when the autopilot's on, what is the autopilot doing now? That can lead to some confusion. But that is the setup. The controls work, they go in the proper direction, and that's what we need to know for now. So you saw the controls were moving in the proper direction. I'm satisfied with the elevator up and down. For sure, the rudder right or left. We have full throttle. There's a lot of aileron throw. It's just the way it came out of the box. You can reduce the throw of the controls. What happens with any model, when you take the control wire rod input and put it into the outer hole, that will have the mechanical effect of minimizing the throw of the rudder of the elevator. If it's closer, you'll have more throw. I needed a little bit more throw in the elevator, so I just, using these pliers, twisted this off from the Z-bend here and moved it to a closer hole, and the same thing with the rudder. I don't want to do that with the ailerons because these are fairly short runs. I'm afraid I might do some damage because they're very closely aligned. I'm just going to try to be very careful on the ailerons when I fly. The other thing I want to show you is you'll see this kind of funky curve here with the wire. That is so that you can, with a set of pliers, adjust the distance here to make sure the elevator is centered just by bending the metal here for this final leg. It's an effective way to do it for these very small models that can accept the very small control forces from that, but that's how you can easily adjust to make sure your control surfaces are centered. So I think we're all set for test flight. You notice the battery, when I put it in, It just fits into this Velcro down here. The instructions say to keep the battery as far to the back as possible for center gravity considerations. It balances pretty close at about 25% in from the wing leading edge, so that is okay. You can see, again, the aileron servos and wires and a little carbon fiber rod. So I think we're all set for a test flight. It's a nice little model. Again, we don't have any idea what's going on inside here. We understand the safe technology, the AS3X. We have proper control, throw. It's in the right direction. I think the next step is to wait for a good day with no wind to take it out for a test flight. Well, good morning. It looks like a very nice day at the field. In other words, a perfect day, and we will try a test flight of the HobbyZone Hobby Sport Cub S model. Everything looks okay. So what we'll do is with the AS3X, we will plug in the battery, let it sit for 5 minutes, check that that's working. We may have to turn the throttle on for a second to activate that, and see if we can take it up for a test flight. So there's the battery right there. They want it as far back as possible for center of gravity. And it sounds like the AS3X is not working. So let's go ahead and see. Now, do you hear that little chatter? That's the AS3X. You can see the rudder move a little bit when it hits bumps in the flying. So we will make sure that we're in section number 2, so the autopilot is off. There's a lot of ailerons. I'm not super happy about that. We'll have to be careful, but the rudder works okay and plenty of throttle. So now we will give it a test flight. So here is the first hand launch of my son Michael. Good hand launch, and now the model is just kind of going up, left, right, stalls. To be honest, I was fighting this model the whole time. You can see that dive there. I have no idea what caused that. And so I'm experimenting with the ailerons. I know there's a lot of aileron throw. Towards the end, I started turning just with rudder. Normally, these smaller models, I try to bring it in close to the camera so we can see the thing fly. I was just trying to keep it over somewhere near the middle of the field during this whole time with altitude just to prevent a crash. And so it settled down a little bit towards the end, but you can see the end is coming right here. It just went straight down at the end for the final. All right, we just had the first flight. You saw the video. The good news is it's got plenty of power. Okay, the engine's got plenty of power. But I'll be honest, I was fighting the airplane the whole time. I don't know what was going on. The safe was not involved on it. I was flying it. I was experimenting with the ailerons, with the rudder towards the end for turning, but I was just working hard to try to keep this airplane flying, and at the very end when it went in, I just lost control of it. So I'll do some more thinking and head scratching. I don't know. It just it flew. If you're on the controls, I think I'll eventually be able to get it settled down. But it was a lot of work getting this thing to fly the way that I wanted it to fly, and we'll have to do some more work in the future.